My name is Karl. I've been coming to Restoring Warriors for about 10 months, almost a year. If I describe what God has done in my life since joining Restoring Warriors, in one word, I would have to say that word is peace. Peace was something that, for a majority of my life, I always felt like was some distant goal that I was trying to get to. And no matter what kind of success I would, attain through career or in relationships or friendships, whatever it is, I still kind of had this feeling inside that, this restlessness. And after joining Restoring Warriors, after kind of learning what being a masculine, biblical, and faith-based man is, I realized, that peace was not necessarily something that I was trying to get to. It's already there. And the fact that it's already there, opening my mind to this, I'm able to go throughout my days now with that peace. So rather than asking God for it when I pray, I ask Him to allow me to access it, to show me the way to access it. And that is a breakthrough that I've had here at Restoring Warriors. I didn't have it before. So this moment happened a couple weeks ago. It's happened a couple times now. Miles brought up that one of the guys in group, he's going to have a surgery. And he asked him to step forward, come to the front of the group. We all gathered around him, put our hands on his shoulder and each other's shoulders, and we prayed together. But not just praying through speaking, we prayed through touch, right? Having our hand on each other's shoulders. And that really was powerful. It took prayer from more than a kind of verbal thing to a feeling, right? You could sense the energy in the room had changed. And that just showed me the true power of prayer and the true power of God's grace. Before joining Restoring Warriors, I was pretty new in my faith journey. In fact, I would say there wasn't much of a journey before Restoring Warriors. The way that I got involved was, so a good friend of mine, he lives multiple states away, but we met working together years ago, and he's a few years older than me. He's been following his faith for a few years now, and he had sent me, a Bible and a book of devotionals in the mail, a couple years ago, and I thought it was a nice gesture, but I didn't take it too seriously. I didn't really do too much with that. Tried reading the Bible a little bit, but it never really stuck. Growing up, I was raised, I'd say, casually Christian, where parents would go to church, on Easter or Christmas, whatever it is, but it was not a focal point in the household. In fact, God and faith wasn't talked about at all. So due to, certain things that had happened in my life, I kind of developed a more, let's say, agnostic, or I wouldn't say atheistic, but agnostic view of faith. I just didn't think about it, didn't talk about it. And I had moved to Colorado pretty recently, just about a year ago. And that friend of mine who had sent me, the Bible and the devotionals, he ended up meeting a guy while hiking. He was out here visiting his brother, met him while hiking. They ran into each other a month later at a University of Tennessee game. They begin talking. All right, we're both men of faith. This isn't a coincidence. What's going on here? They started talking about their faith. And the gentleman that my friend had met, it's Scott Sweeney, one of the founding fathers of this group. And Scott had told him about this men's group that he was trying to help build here in Colorado. My friend immediately called me later that night, said, hey, you need to meet this guy, put me in a group chat with him. Scott invited me to the group the following Tuesday, and I began my journey with Restoring Warriors. And all of that backstory is to say I was very new to faith. I didn't really know what it meant to have faith in God, to truly believe, to truly commit myself to it. And so I owe where I'm at now in my faith journey, which is much farther along, I owe that to Restoring Warriors. I like this question. What challenges was I facing at the time when joining Restoring Warriors? Personally, family-wise, relationships, whatever it is. It's funny. I would say that a lot of things in my life seemed to be going well. I was doing well from a career standpoint. I have good friendships out here in Colorado, a bunch of friends from college and their associated friends. So I had a good friend group, physically fit, treated my body pretty well. I had all these things in life that were kind of check boxes that felt like, I was on the right path. Yet, I had this, kind of restless feeling that I didn't have any purpose, right? What's all this for? What's the point of all of this? And I had felt it for years. I graduated college and immediately went into the workforce and put all my energy into building a successful career. But as soon as I started attaining that success, right, getting promotions, being paid more, getting recognition for doing my job well, and then also, doing all of my hobbies and hanging out with friends, it didn't fill my cup up fully. And so I had this kind of lack of purpose, I would say. Didn't really know what this was all for. Didn't know where I was going. I just knew I was kind of checking boxes off along the way. And so that was really the biggest struggle that was going on in my life, that veil of everything seeming to go well, yet inside I felt empty. I would say it's difficult to put words to it because looking back, I don't know if I really had a relationship with Christ. I think that throughout my entire life, bad things would happen, which would make me, get upset, angry, move farther away from religion. But I know that there's been plenty of good things that have happened, which was Christ like reaching out, trying to pull me back to him. So there was kind of that one-sided, he obviously wanted a relationship with me, but I was pushing it away. So since joining Restoring Warriors, I understood that I was doing that my whole life, pushing God away, not actually focusing on that relationship aspect. I kind of thought faith was a group thing, right? It was something that was passed down to you through your parents. You'd go to church, you'd be a part of the community. I didn't see faith as a personal relationship with Christ. Restoring Warriors opened my eyes to that. So every day since I started going to this group and really being a part of things and actually, practicing what we're trying to do here, every day my relationship with Christ gets better. This is one of those areas. So how has my prayer life changed since joining Restoring Warriors? This is one of those areas that is still a struggle for me. I'm still trying to improve it every day. But when I was thinking about this, individually, so as an individual, personally, when I'm alone by myself, I still find it really difficult to pray. And I don't know if it's just because I'm always in a rush and I'm trying to get to the next thing. I wake up and immediately I'm trying to go to the gym or do whatever else. I find excuses to not pray. Oh, I have to go do this. So that part, it's still a work in progress. But a couple areas where my prayer life has changed. First, when I pray now, rather than giving a laundry list of items to God and asking for things, I immediately start with gratitude. Thank you for another day to follow the path that you've set out for me. I say that almost every time. Thank you for a healthy body. Thank you for a job that I can go to that, fills my cup. Thank you for friends that care about me, that I can go have experiences with. Thank you for the ability to go do whatever thing I'm going to go do today. So I always started off with that. I ask God to allow me to access things rather than asking for those things, right? So for instance, rather than asking God for strength, I know that he's already blessed me with that. So I ask him to show me the way to access that strength that's already there. It's a much more empowering position for me. So rather than coming from a place of lack, I come from a place of, I know it's there, show me how to access it. And then praying for others. That was something that I didn't do before Restoring Warriors at all. And one thing I love about this group is that, this group of men, right, as men, we're not used to asking for help, but everyone is really bought into the fact that we can ask each other for help, and it's a good thing. So when guys reach out asking for prayer, I pray for them now, and I include them in my prayer by name. And that part right there, it's shifted my focus from, purely inward, selfish, you could say, to actually being more empathetic and knowing that my friends and guys in this group are going through things as well. Makes me feel less alone, and it's nice to pray for others and actually care for them too. And then the last way, which was kind of the most surprising, I've become a lot more confident praying in front of people. So, when we do our small groups, we'll kick it off with a prayer, we'll end with a prayer. And whenever I lead a small group, first couple times I did was really awkward. I didn't know what to say, kind of ramble on and then just end the prayer. Now I actually I'm able to actually access some kind of flow with it, where I have a direction and an intention with what I'm praying. And I think it just helps from a leadership standpoint. It allows me to reframe my own focus. Like if I'm leading a group, I want to help set the tone and actually invite the Lord into our group. And so that last piece there, that was unexpected. I didn't expect to get more confident praying in front of others, but I have. One specific moment or breakthrough that I've had, there's been so many, but one that I didn't expect to, it just was a complete mind shift, a reframe of how I saw something. So being in Restoring Warriors, me and a group of the men from the group, we went ahead and did the Crucible Project, which is a men's retreat. Happens a couple times a year out here in Colorado. And during that retreat, we did a lot of inner work, right? Figuring out reasons why we are the way we are, how we can be better men, right? Translating it that way. In one of the areas that I was trying to focus on and, unpack with my own life was patience. I've always struggled with patience, not only with others, but myself, right? With anyone and anything. So I can be driving down the street and someone's driving a little too slow, and it just really conjures up this anger inside of me that I don't like. And it shows up in my career, right, and how I treat others at work. It shows up in relationships. It shows up in my friendships. And so it was something that I really wanted to get to the bottom of. And we did this exercise at Crucible where we were kind of talking about, all right, what are you giving up if you decide to be patient? That was kind of the question that was posed to me. And I'd never seen it that way before. I'd always just seen it as, this is the way I am, right? And people should be better. I don't need to be better. People need to be better. And when asked, if I decide to be patient, what do I have to give up? I never thought of it that way before. And I came to the conclusion, I have to give up blaming others for my problems. And that was just a complete mind-shifting moment. I didn't think about it that way before. I didn't realize I was doing it, right? I always saw it as I'm right and everyone else is wrong. But, what that allowed me to see is that, no. I felt bad inside and I wanted to blame others for it, right? It was easier to externalize that blame rather than sit there and figure out why I felt bad. That was a huge moment for me. And that's happened countless times here at Group because we challenge each other. We challenge ourselves. We challenge each other. Every week, Sean loves to give us a challenge. And part of what we do too is journaling, right? And if you start writing stuff down, and I'd always struggle with journaling. When you start writing stuff down and really letting it come from the heart, you start to unpack all of those layers of the onion, and you realize you have to look inward and actually make some changes, which is uncomfortable. So that was a long-winded answer for that was a big moment for me. This one's very simple. So one habit and discipline that I've developed since joining Restoring Warriors is reading the Bible. It's very simple. This was really kick-started, about 6 weeks ago with the Warrior Path. Reading the Bible seemed like something that was just out of the realm of what I could do. There's so many pages. It's a thick book. Sometimes it can be dry. It's hard to read, right? And that was always the way I looked at it. I would start to read the Bible, and then immediately I'd be ready for bed. And so I just kind of strayed away from it. I didn't try. And part of the warrior path was we needed to read a chapter of Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John every single day. And so I started with the book of Matthew and just read one chapter. And then the next day, one chapter. And the next day, one chapter. And I started getting really into it, because then it would turn into 2 chapters and 3 chapters. I kind of couldn't put it down. I think taking the Bible and making it, all right, we're just challenging you to go ahead and read 1 chapter a day. It boils it down to just that 1 chapter, right? You don't have to be overwhelmed by the whole thing. And you're also not trying to decipher everything all at once. You read 1 chapter, it's very bite-sized, it's very easy to kind of sit with. And you do that long enough, and you can read multiple chapters in a day. So that's one habit that I've developed since joining, and that in and of itself has brought me a lot of peace. How has my perspective on biblical manhood shifted since joining Restoring Warriors? It's shifted completely. What I thought manhood was, let alone biblical manhood was, before joining Restoring Warriors, is completely different from now. I used to see, right, every man for himself. You just gotta go get yours and take care of yourself, and no one else is gonna take care of you. And that's the way I saw things before. Since joining, and not only kind of what we talk about, but just seeing the lives that other men in the group have lived, and seeing how they treat their families and their kids and each other, I've realized that biblical manhood is so much about intention. Every action you take, everything that you do, should have intention behind it. Not just any intention, like holy intention. Is this something that Jesus would look fondly on, this action you're taking, whatever it is? That right there was a complete shift, right? Having an actual point behind what you're doing. And then really being a servant, and not in the way of, I guess, being lowly or anything like that, right? A peasant. No. Like servant leadership, right? You will do things first. You're going to go make sure you take care of your wife and your kids and your friends and your community. You're going to be the one that goes first and actually lays down whatever it is on the line to make sure people are taken care of. Again, that was a complete shift. I kind of saw manhood as, you're alone in this world and you just have to do your own thing, and that's the only way to be safe, to be okay, to take care of just you. And now I realize the only way that you can take care of you is by taking care of others first. One thing that I would say to a man who's on the fence about joining. The first thing, I'll say a couple things here. I know it's one thing, but I'll say a couple things. First thing is that there's no harm in just trying, right? Go to a Tuesday night, see how you like it. But the second thing, and the main point I would say is, well, what's your intention? Why are you on the fence to begin with? For someone like me, I was certainly on the fence. It did take kind of, I wouldn't say a push, but just like a wild moment, like the story of why I joined and how I joined. But I was on the fence because I kind of had that hole, right? I had that part of me that felt like there was no purpose, like I couldn't figure out my purpose. It was always like an arm's length away. And so I would say, ask yourself why you're even on the fence to begin with. Because faith isn't something that you can be on the fence for. You're either in or you're out. And the fact that you're on the fence means that there's something in your life pulling you. So with that, go and give it a try. And, most of the men, all of the men that have joined, come darn near every week now at this point. I think and not to toot, our own horn, but I think what we're doing here at Restoring Warriors is not only very powerful and very meaningful in our own lives, but I think this could be one of the puzzle pieces that helps fix our society. I know that's a very lofty statement, but men across the country and around the world need this type of brotherhood, this type of ministry, right? So many of us, especially in Western society, have kind of strayed away from any kind of moral compass whatsoever. and we can see all of these cracks kind of forming. And not only that, masculinity in and of itself is under attack, especially in Western society. And that's to the detriment of not just men, but everybody. Because there's a quote, I can't remember what book I read it from, but it's been everywhere. Strong men create strong families. Strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Without having a strong masculine foundation in the centerpiece of not just society, but every family, every community, you will start to create hard times. And I think that nowadays what we're seeing across the world, and especially in Western society, is that this attack on masculinity, these cracks kind of forming in our society, and we see it, right? Even if you're not paying attention to politics or on social media, like, you still can kind of see it in how people are acting. Without having, right, strong biblical men in your family, in your communities that kind of hold the foundation together, things start to fall apart. So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying what we're doing here at Restoring Warriors. And not only is it impacting our own lives, but this is something that men need across the country, across the world. And it starts here with what we're doing, but there's groups like this going on. And so if you're thinking about joining a group like this, whether you're in your 20s or your 50s, 60s, doesn't matter. Go give it a try, because it'll change your life no matter what walk of life you're in.